Welcome to this presentation on invoicing and reporting for Legacy Trails Program awardees. Thanks, Candace, for the introduction. Candace Gallagher is American Trails Operations Director and will be helping with invoicing. I'm Kathy Corlett, the Trail Fund Program Director. So as you know, the Legacy Trails Program is funded by the USDA Forest Service and administered by American Trails, so you will be sending your invoices to us. American Trails manages the Legacy Trails program and awards the funding in partnership with representatives from the motorized and non-motorized trails community. And we need you to please contact your local USFS district ranger or other line officer when you invoice us for your project, so we can make sure that you are coordinating with the Forest Service and that they are aware of your project progress. So the invoicing process really is pretty simple. A few things to be aware of. Number one, this is a reimbursal only process, as you probably already know, but you need to make sure you pay contractors and complete your work first, buy your supplies, and then invoice us. You will need to invoice us through our online invoice portal. And that way we won't miss an email from you, invoice from you. Everything will just be in one place. So keep in mind that there is a reporting requirement also for your project. So as you're making progress on things, keep track of your project progress. I'll go into a little bit more about that in a minute. So it's best to think of invoicing as a process. Before you create an invoice to send to us, collect information, receipts, materials that you've purchased, and work that was done, all the documentation that you have. And then when you're creating an invoice, refer to your project budget that you shared in your application, and you can use our standard invoice template. Then at the time that you do invoice us, you can please also notify your local Forest Service contact. And since you're going to use our online invoice template to send your invoice to American Trails, you'll need to send your invoice to your contact at the Forest Service via email and just CC American Trails. So I know that's an extra step, but we need you to go ahead and do that so we can see that there's coordination happening. So finally, once you're uploading your invoice to the portal and your documentation, your receipts, all through the online portal, I will show you all of that in a minute. Once you do that, then we've received awardees invoices. We will then invoice the Forest Service and send you payment via direct deposit. So if you have any questions about all this process, just hold them for a minute because I'll go into a little more depth about some of this stuff. This is what it looks like when you go to our awardee portal on our website, if you haven't been there yet. At the end of the presentation, I'll go ahead and navigate there live to make sure you know how to find it. Just for now, know that everything you need is there. We have the guide to invoicing, we have the invoice template, and we have the invoicing portal where you're going to upload your invoices. So when you go to the awardee portal, you can look at a document called the Quick Guide to Invoicing. The next few slides are taken word for word from this guide with illustrations. So as we've discussed, invoices are reimbursements for work and materials that you've purchased. This is, I guess I've said it already, you just need to do your work first and then submit, your documentation and your invoice. It's fairly straightforward. You can invoice us every month, or you can invoice us as often as you need to, but no more than once a month. We aren't going to be able to invoice the Forest Service on your behalf more than once a month. So it could just be once at the completion of the project. Really depends on what works best for you. So everything that we receive on or after the first of the month will be processed on that next month's billing period. So we consolidate all the invoices that we get by the 30th or the 31st, the end of a particular month. And then we will turn around on the 15th next month. We're going to send an invoice with everybody's grand total to the Forest Service. That may take a little while for them to get back to us, although it hasn't taken as long as 60 days yet, but it might. So it's hard to plan for these things, I understand, but we try to, we do what we can to expedite things. Once we get the money from them, it should be coming back to you within 5 to 10 business days. And so Candace will send out your direct deposit, and usually that happens pretty quick. So what do I do with all these receipts? Which ones do I keep? Which ones do I not need to keep? Just keep them all. It's never hurts to have really good record keeping. And it's easier to do this as you go than to wait until the end and try and find everything, of course. So just kind of try and keep in good habits with the record keeping. And then we're going to need you to scan all your receipts if they're not already digital, put them into a PDF, and then that gets uploaded through the portal. So yes, there's different categories of the budget. It's pretty obvious you'll need a receipt for materials you've bought, food you've bought, but also for the project overhead part, we need to document personnel and fringe benefits. So that would be through payroll reports. And if, we can, sometimes there are questions, and of course we're here to help answer them, but we might not need all the details now, but if we get some kind of question from the Forest Service, then we may come back to you and ask for more details. And please keep them for 3 years after the project, just in case that there is an audit. I know that's a lot of record keeping, but it's kind of standard. So how do we receive direct deposit? It's through direct deposit. So if you need to have us mail you a check, that is possible, but I think everyone who's been awarded this year is already on file with a direct deposit form. So that's by far the best way to go. And it'll be the fastest. Again, Candace is the one if you have questions about the direct deposit part, but I think everyone's set to go. Okay, so when you're preparing an invoice, here's the nitty-gritty. What you need to do is go to you're going to be using our standard invoice template, and we have it available as an Excel file. And the categories should match everything that you already spelled out in the budget when you applied. So first thing you're going to do is rename the digital file. So when you send us that file, it will have the date of your invoice, your project name, and your organization name. And some organizations do have different projects. So we need to make sure that you put the project name on there if you have more than one project that you've been awarded, so we can keep everything in the right category. So you've renamed the digital file, and now you've just put the name of your organization, your project name within this document, the date of your invoice. Everything that's in green is going to need to be edited, customized every time you invoice us. Fairly simple. And then you're going to just refer to your add these into this categories. It should add up automatically. There's 2 pages on this, but you can add more if you have a large invoice. Just feel free to add to the Excel. You can add additional lines. Please don't add any more columns. Stay within this format. And then just go ahead and make it into a PDF, and then go to the portal and upload it. This is what the portal looks like on our website. It's quite simple. It's your name, your project name, your contact, the invoice date. We'll ask you to also input into the portal what your total invoice amount is, what your in-kind match is, your total cash match. I know this is redundant. It's the same as the information you've already put on your invoice. It's important for us to be able to give all this data to the Forest Service as we go and at the end, so we can keep track of how much of the budgets have been used up, and just keeps it simple. It all goes into a big spreadsheet. So that's nice. And make sure, please, that these numbers do match what you've put on your invoice, so we don't have any confusion. If you have any explanation of anything, that we have comments area, or you can email also if you have something else that wasn't foreseen that you need to tell us about. And then here's a place for you to give us the name of your contact person at the Forest Service, what their email is, and then please do contact them either right before or right after you upload your invoice to us. All right, well, so switching gears, let's talk about reporting a little bit. Something to keep in mind as you move forward with your project. You need to anticipate that there will be interim and end of project reporting. So we're going to need you to submit a final report of all your accomplishments at the end of the project. So that'll be within 30 days by the end of January 2025. So that's a ways out. But right for now, just like with your invoicing, keeping good records as you go is really important. Because you can show us now photos, if you have them, of what the project looked like before or during construction. You can think about your coordination with the U.S. Forest Service, what's working well. Of course, think about getting some kind of sense of like milestones, what kept you on track, what needed adjustment, what have you learned through this process that could make a future project better. This could inform a future grant application too, so also keep that in mind. It's useful information. It's also nice, if you can, to get some quotes from volunteers and staff. That really helps us when we do aggregate all the information from everybody for the final report. We won't use all of them, but it's nice to know what was the experience of the people that were involved with this project. Another thing for your reporting is kind of the metrics. So how many volunteers have you engaged so far this year with your project? How many work parties have you had? How many hours does that add up to? What were the staff numbers? What's your budget summary? We can just look at your invoices for that. But other accomplishments, we might ask you to describe just kind of in words what was accomplished. And also thinking about the project metrics that we evaluated your project on when we awarded you. So these will be the priority environmental goals, the trail improvements by the mile, and then the different ways that you may have improved the trail stream crossing. Just as a quick refresher, the grant intent has these 7 items. So you were awarded because your project is moving toward realizing at least one of these goals: relocating trails, restoring fish passage, building bridges, or replacing culverts. So at least one of these things that will be part of part of what your accomplishments might be. And also thinking about the just some of the more measurable parts of your project. How many maintenance miles did you defer? These kind of things, to try to quantify that. Sometimes it's a little hard to do, but we're sort of looking for that information. And every project is really different. So what makes yours uniquely important? Okay, I'm gonna just move to the internet now and go to our website live, but I'll show you around a little bit before we take some questions, and I'll go back to this slide at the end. But this is how you can contact me, Kathy at americantrails.org, and there's Candace at americantrails.org. All right, I should be able to see my screen and see our website. So there's a lot on here, so I wanted to just navigate to, if you're going to try, if you haven't done this before, hopefully you have, but you go to the Trail Fund, you go to the Legacy Trails program, and then you'll drop down to the awardee portal. Just like I showed you before, it looks the same. If you click on the guide to invoicing, what comes up is just a couple page document with those same, frequently asked questions. If you click on invoice template, that will just automatically download right to your computer. So that's that PDF document. Here's what it looks like. Again, it's all editable. So make sure you don't edit any of the formulas, and make sure everything looks like it adds up correctly at the end. It should be, it's a new version now than you might have seen a month or so ago. Tried to make it a little bit more legible for you. Oh, and I see that I need to change this letter D into a letter E. So you can, there's whatever can go wrong does. But anyway, this is what it looks like. Well, there may be some updates once in a while, but basically it'll be the same format. Okay, and then so let's go to the invoicing portal. Very similar to, it's the same platform as you used when you applied. There's all the categories, and I've added extra places here for you to add extra files just in case some of these things you upload are too large. So you have lots of extra room for adding other files if you have lots and lots of receipts. It's nice if you can PDF that into one big PDF rather than individual PDFs of each receipt, but however you go about it is fine. That's about it for what it looks like on the portal there. I'm gonna just navigate back to this screen, and I think we're ready to take some questions. Candace, are you there?
Great, I'm here. Sorry, I had to move a bunch of screens to see my mute button. I just want to, let's see here. So Maggie asks, I think she knows though now, but just to confirm, she assumed that because they had to include the U.S. Forest Service contact and email that you all would send them the report, but just confirming that to forwarding it to us now. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be great to please contact them on your own. There are 38 projects we've awarded, and just would simplify things for you to contact them directly and then CC us.
Great.
But
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
But just go ahead and do share their name so that we have it in our records, so we know who you contacted. In case we missed that email, we can make sure we find them. And sometimes that person changes. That might not be the same person that wrote the letter of recommendation for your application. So
right.
just
I'm going to follow up if I could. This is Maggie. So how much of the information, I mean, they don't have access to all the information from the portal. So am I to send them all the receipts and all that documentation as well? Or just the invoice?
No, just the invoice itself. You don't need to send all the receipts.
I thought they might come choke me if I did that.
I hear you. Yeah, and I apologize. This wasn't something that we mentioned when you signed your awardee agreement, but so it's something that the Forest Service has asked us to have you do.
Great, thank you so much. And a follow-up question that Gina has is, which email do they CC when sending their invoices to the Forest Service?
You can just CC me. You can include Candace too if you want to, but at least send it to me, and I'll make sure anybody else wants to see it that I pass that on.
Mm-hmm. Great. And just before I ask the next question, you know, if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. We have plenty of time to answer any questions you all might have as far as invoicing and reporting goes. So Tim is asking, where do you show volunteer labor?
So that would be in your in-kind match. Similar to how you did your budget when you applied. Your volunteer labor is considered an in-kind match at the rate that you used when you applied, which I think was something like $27 or $29 an hour. Does that make some sense? And if you want to go deeper into that question, you know, individually, you can ask me for an example, but it should go in that. I can navigate to this column. Can you see the column where it says partner in kind contributions? That would be in column C. I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, there we go. Sorry, Tim. Under what row category? So does that answer your question, Tim? The partner in kind contributions. And if not, just let us know. Under salaries, he's asking. Oh, maybe Tim. Yeah, go ahead and you can talk.
Hey, yeah. So, hey, good folks. Oh, look, it's me. So when I have volunteer labor, am I putting that under the salaries category? So if I'm, you know, I have a bunch of volunteer labor for my next invoice, what is that, salaries or other or contractual?
Yeah,
What-
that is a really good question. I think what's the category that makes the most sense? It could be other, or it could be salaries. I mean, these are unpaid volunteers that we're just crediting them with their in-kind work. So if it doesn't seem logical to put it under salaries, you can put it under other, but I don't think that that's going to hold anything up. We're not going to come back to you and say, oh, that's in the wrong category. You've got to put it right. If it just feels
Okay.
to you. Yeah.
I kind of separated it input, so I have volunteer pack support, and I've been putting that under contractual,
Mm-hmm.
and I could put like volunteer sawyers under other. We'll put it wherever you want. It's
Yeah. I think whatever makes the most sense to you is fine. You know, sometimes it's, you know, we're training volunteers, so that would go under training when they're coming in with their, you know, they're not getting paid for that. But just kind of what makes sense for the activity those volunteers are doing, I guess.
gotcha.
And
And
feel
then
free
for something,
to add a note
so-
there to explain what it is that you're doing, what the volunteers were doing. Anything that feels like it needs clarification, you can just add a little note there.
yeah. Why don't I on my next submission, if it looks hinky and you want more information, let me know.
Sounds good.
And
Thanks.
thanks, folks. Good things are happening out there.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear all the interim information from everybody.
We have time still for plenty more questions if you all have. Maggie, you go on ahead.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So thinking of like screwy looking invoices, I'm sure mine was funny and enjoyable to look at. But what I was going to ask about is I didn't title it, and I didn't see that until this new invoice came out that I needed to change the title. But do you mean the title of the document, or where it says Legacy Trails Program Invoice 2023?
Yeah. Everywhere, everything that can mean. You imagine that invoices are coming in to American Trails with a document name, without distinguishing that by project or organization or date, then that can make it a little messier to know where that goes. So it's nice for you to help us by putting that into the digital title that you've saved it as well as within the document itself.
Do I need to resend the one that I sent at the end
You
of
don't. I would have asked. Yeah, no, you don't. I went ahead and that's all saved in the right place.
Okay, thank you for what you did, Kathy.
Yeah.
And I'm still waiting to get another question or so in. I don't see anything yet, but again, feel free to share any questions you all have in the chat if you do.
I always hope we can anticipate all the questions, but that's why we do these things, to make sure that if there is something we didn't think about, it's a chance to ask.
Can I verbalize my next question? It's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
bet.
so volunteer labor rate. It's kind of all over the board for us. We go off from what RCO's rates are. You have a basic labor, you have stock packers get another rate, sawyers get still another rate. There's a federal rate, so I'm still somewhat confused what rate to use. When I built out my budget, it was hella complicated because I'm that type of a guy. I really drilled down and just says, oh, I'm gonna have this many hours of sawyers and stock, and I probably overthought it. It's a genetic defect, which I embrace. So just kind of curious when I'm trying to show that.
Yeah.
I can explode it out as much as possible and go to the RCO rate. Because that's sort of, yeah, when I did my budget, that's how I calculated it out. I split it out in categories. Would you like that reflected in the invoice?
I think it's perfectly fine to do that and to say, so where it says type quantity cost, that's where you could say, we had the Sawyers and there were 16 of them and the rate was, times this many dollars an hour. You can reflect all that on there. That's fine. All that won't hurt anything to have more detail than might be needed. Also, if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, I wasn't as detailed as that, do I need to now go and do all this detail? No, I don't think you do. As long as you're staying within roughly 10% of where your budget was when you applied, you don't need to get permission from us to change things around or we'd like to kind of keep this as simple as possible. So you can use the published rate that's out there, the federal rate that we have in our frequently asked questions that I think right now is like $29.95. Just go ahead and use that one rate for everything if you want to keep it simple. But if you're like Tim and you want to break it down, that makes more sense for managing your budget, please go ahead and do that. I hope that helps.
I don't see any additional questions yet.
Well, this might be to be a very long presentation then.
Yeah.
But please know that you can always email in future. Go to that last slide. And let us know if anything changes at your organization, of course, too. If you've staff changes or just for whatever reason, go ahead and we'll get back to you if you want to email us with any questions. And I don't know when I'm going to be asking you for some interim reporting. It shouldn't be very complicated, but that will probably be in the next few weeks. You'll get an email asking for some of that. Yeah.
Right. All right. I think if you're okay, Kathy, we probably can. Oh wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Make sure nope, just awesome. So thanks, Tim. And thank you, Stephen, as well.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yep. Thank you so much for coming. And Kathy will share a follow-up email with the link to this recording so you can check back, and view it at any time.
Okay. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks,
well,
everyone.
friends.